Well, thank you, Bill, and welcome to another edition of Eavesdropping. I'm so glad you could stop by across the breadth and scope of this great nation, parts of Canada and parts of Mexico. We are live in Los Angeles today in LA Live, overlooking crypto.com arena. And tonight we have the opportunity to eavesdrop with Latha Jay. And Lana has been featured in major publications, including Elite Daily, MSN, Cosmopolitan, Entertainment Weekly, and The Sun, and has built a significant social media presence, particularly on TikTok. Her coaching style emphasizes helping clients shift perceptions and manifest their desires through personalized support, identifying root causes of struggles, and providing practical tools for trends. Welcome to our microphones, Latha.
Thanks for having me.
That is a lot. So I read somewhere else that you turn shadow work into sacred art, but I'd have to start by asking you, what is shadow work?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that's a great place to start as well. So, shadow work is really, it's been called many things. Shadow work is the new buzz name, we'll say about it. But many people might know it as inner child work or wounded child work. It's essentially a space of looking internal and seeing what's going on within yourself. And what the shadow then can show up in our life is limiting beliefs, what's holding us back, that voice that comes up that says, oh, you're not good enough for that. It can show up as projections about what we project on someone else as to what their motives might be for a situation. And it can show up in the space of repetition compulsion when we see in our life a pattern, or maybe we don't see it, but it seems like we're going from one job to the other and the boss is the same, but they're totally different people, or one relationship to the other that all kind of end in the same way, or our annoyances happen in a similar pattern again and again, even though the variables are very different. The person that you're dating is very different. Maybe the place that you're living is different. The job that you have is different. But yet we see this compulsion, this repetition that's coming up again and again for us.
And that you think or at least shadow work, I guess, operates on the premise that that's the cause of these kind of repetitive things that happen in our lives.
Yeah. And just being able to shine some light on that shadow, that space, and to even realize that there is a pattern starts the shift.
Yeah.
It shifts things in a different direction. But the first spot is to really be in the space of inquiry and to look. And the way that I teach shadow work is from a space of being very gentle with it and being very curious and compassionate. And I've learned through many years of doing this that when we approach it in an aggressive manner, we tend to fall back. We might get far initially in the beginning, but then we're like, this is not sustainable. But when we come at it from a very compassionate place, we can do a lot more work long term, and it really does make a difference.
Is the shadow the information that's in the shadows, I guess, is it always negative? Is it positive as well? Or is it something we always need to clean up?
Well, what we have categorized as a shadow is something that can tend to be in the space of guilt, regret, shame, right? That we feel. So when we think of different things that we feel proud or joyous of, we don't necessarily associate it with a shadow. So what we're associating with the shadow is tends to be those things that we want to suppress or repress or not be seen.
Yeah. So I guess years ago, back in the 1930s or 40s, there was a radio show called The Shadow. And I think it opened with, "Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The shadow knows." So that wasn't too far off from the truth, huh?
Not at all. Yeah. It's just an aspect of ourself that we tend to want to put aside or ignore. And if we take the time to actually just see what's there, it ends up giving us a lot more information about ourselves. And then we can function in a much different way in our lives.
Yeah.
Would you like to give you an example about like a shadow or how it could develop?
I'd love it.
Okay. So this is one of my shadows that I share with everybody because I think it's very powerful. But I was probably around 10 years old. I really wanted to be a singer. Selena the singer was really big at that time, and I really wanted to be a singer. So I had joined the school choir, and one day during choir practice, we're in the auditorium. There's about 40 kids standing on the bleachers singing, and my music teacher calls me down from the bleacher. She says, "Latha, come here, come down." And in my mind, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is my chance. I got the solo. I am so excited." I could have floated down off those bleachers. I was so excited. And when I got to her, she looked me right in the eyes and she said, "Latha, you have a terrible voice. You not be a singer. You should barely speak. Go and sit down." She had me sit in the auditorium in the chairs, and in that moment, my heart broke, and I could have just, spontaneously combusted. It was so embarrassing for me, and of course, the children that were on the bleachers were in uproarious laughter of this, and in that moment, I had decided that she was right, that my voice didn't matter, that I really shouldn't speak up for myself, that I should remain quiet. And for years from that point, that's exactly what I did. I allowed that belief, that shadow, to really take the wheel of my life. So I didn't speak up for myself. I didn't, seek any kind of promotions or a furthering of my life to any extent. And I stayed very, very small, really in the space of feeling a lot of shame around my voice. And it wasn't until I was really able to kind of understand that and understand that I was holding this shadow and being able to be in observance of it, that I was able to see, like, wait a second, my voice does have value. And I mean, if you look at my career now and what I do, I literally talk to millions of people every single day through social media. I've written books. Now I'm in videos and on in magazines and really speaking up for myself. And that's been where my point of power has been. So a
Yeah.
lot of when we're able to understand our shadow and uncover it, it tends to be our strongest point, our strongest strength, our characteristic for ourselves.
Well, how long after that event that did you first start to examine your own shadow to try
It
and
was
heal it, as it were?
more than a decade later. It was well past a decade later. I was probably in my 20s when I even understood that might be something else gone that was amiss. I was actually coming out of a divorce. I had gotten married in my early 20s and, it was a mess. It totally fell apart. And I felt a lot of these same feelings like I didn't have a voice and I couldn't speak up for myself. And when I actually did the work to see, like, hey, what is going on here? Why is my life going this way? I was able to see, whoa, this is where it's all coming from, and I can make a different choice. Now, when you're doing shadow work, you don't have to necessarily find that root cause like I did. Like, oh, I could point out to this exact moment. A lot of people can't do that, and that's fine. And some people can, and that's fine too. But even just understanding where it could stem from, you don't have to even know the exact point, but just understanding the path can give us so much vision in this space, so much light to this space of that was once very shadowed.
Yeah. How do you start the process? And I guess this is part of what your practice is now.
Yeah. You start the process by being triggered. And, people don't want to be triggered, of course, but it's in those moments that we are triggered that we have this insight of like, oh, wait, I'm upset. Why am I upset here? And for me, like I was sharing, it was on the heels of my divorce that I was just like, I am very upset. What is going on here? And that gave me the moment to say, okay, I don't like how things went. How do I want them to go in the future,
Yeah.
And now I'm been married for over a decade to my husband, who we have an amazing, healthy, loving relationship was with, but I know for a fact that I would not be able to then get into a long-term healthy relationship had I not healed the shadows that were within me from way beyond even that first marriage.
Yeah. Well, how long have you been teaching or coaching shadow work now?
And now for over 15 years.
Well, well. So, are there other parts of your practice, or do you focus primarily on shadowing, or sorry, shadow work, or are there other parts of kind of this? Kind of sounds mystical.
There's definitely a mystical aspect to it, but I'll tell you that a lot of it is in the space of practicality and understanding
Hmm.
ourselves. A lot of it stems from neuroscience and psychology. It is not just all woo woo, right? I tend to exist in the world of woo because I'm happiest there, but when I'm working with clients, it really depends on where they are, and it's really about meeting the client where they are and then assisting and supporting them and getting them to where they want to be, to the goals that they want to reach. Shadow work is just one aspect of what it is that I do.
Yeah.
Really, I support people and empower them to then reach the goals in their life, whether that is making more money, finding the love of their life, creating a beautiful family. Really, like it's an endless kind of thing. You can have whatever it is that you want in your life, but it's just the understanding that you are capable of having it. That's where it all starts.
Yeah. So, you're a manifesting coach as well as you do teach about shadow work. Does manifesting work?
Yeah, it absolutely does. I mean, yes, absolutely. That's the short answer. But I will say this, that when people have the belief that manifesting is possible, I can see it making huge shifts in their life. And when people believe that it's not possible, that it's this stuff that is way, very out there kind of thing, and it doesn't work, then it doesn't work, right? You're always right in your belief in what it is that you believe is how your life is going to unfold for you. So I strongly believe that manifestation works, and I've seen it not only in my life, but in the thousands of clients that I've had over the past 15 years, almost 2 decades now, that it's been miracle after miracle after miracle in what they've been able to create and for themselves. It's been astonishing.
Well, how does manifesting work, and why does it work?
Yeah. So manifesting works. Well, let me say where it starts from. Manifestation starts from a thought, right? It's that a thought, then thought many times, becomes a belief. And that belief then affects the way that you show up in the world. It affects your actions. It affects the directionality of your life. And then that is the manifestation. So if we believe that we're capable of getting that job promotion and becoming CEO, right? That's where it starts. So thought, then it then becomes that belief and strengthens. And then our actions are then guided towards that goal, towards that path of achieving that manifestation.
So that's the why. I guess that's the how and the why of how it works. So how do you start the thought in the first place? I mean, can we control our thoughts? Can we insert thoughts, or how do we control what kind of we wake up in the morning to have something on our mind?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So there's two spaces that we can think from, right? There's the default state, which is the state that we wake up in the morning, and that's the thoughts that are rolling around in our head, and then we're in that space. And then there's the conscious space of thought, the conscious creative space. And then that's the space that I teach from, right? The space that we're constantly creating our thought. So in the morning, I might train a client to really like wake up in the morning and shift their initial thoughts. They could wake up in the morning and think, oh my God, my back pain and this and that. And, I have all these bills to pay or whatever the case is. But it's in the
Do you have a mirror or a microphone into my room? You know what I say every morning?
You know, I'll tell you, I would say probably more than half of the clients that I see are in this space of being very much focused on all the things in their life that don't work, right? All the things that kind of make them miserable. And when you're in that space of thought, it continues in that spiral. You're on a sled going downhill. And it's when we start to shift, make these really small micro shifts in our life that we can see some really true results. It's those drops in the bucket that truly add up to then shift our lives dynamically.
Yeah. Lutha J. Lutha J. Excuse me, is guest manifestation coach. So, how long does manifestation take? I want $2 million. How long does that take?
How long do you think it takes?
Yeah.
Well, let me say this too. A lot of times people will ask this question, and it really is dependent from person to person. If you believe that it's easy and quick to manifest a free cup of coffee, guess what? That's going to come to you very quickly. But now, if you think about this $2 million and you're like, there's this, and then there's, and when it comes, I have to pay taxes, and how am I going to do this? And I have to hire okay, well, then that's a lot more anxiety that you're associating with it. A big part of manifesting is being in the vibrational energy and the emotional energy, the feeling space of already having it. Now, it's very easy for us to imagine, to visualize, to manifest having a cup of coffee because we know it. It's very familiar to us. It's there. So it coming to us seems very easy, plausible. It can happen at any time. I go to the bank and I have a coffee machine. There's a free cup of coffee, right? Can be super easy. Now, on the other hand, it might be a reach for us to imagine what it feels like to be in the existence of $2 million, for that $2 million to hit our bank account. And it feels very foreign to us. So that
Is that a
foreign,
limiting belief?
yes, in that
Yeah.
space of really not being able to feel like we can have it is that limiting belief, feeling like it is gonna be too much, we're not deserving of it, we're not worthy of this money being in our life, how are we gonna be able to handle it? Because 'Cause we've messed up so many times in the past and we're in all of this debt, that $2 million won't even scratch the surface. Like all of this spiral thought that comes to us. Those are limiting beliefs, and that's where the shadow lives. So
Yeah.
when we're addressing that root space, everything starts to shift.
Yeah. So then vibrations are part of this, I think you said. You really have to yeah. So everything is a vibration of energy.
Yeah, and I mean, I teach it from the space of emotions because I think that that's the most accessible for most people. But
Mhm.
where we're in this high vibrational emotional energy, which is love, happiness, and gratitude, that is a space that you want to be, that you are really like a super magnet of manifesting things towards us when you start to see that your life will change. But when we're in the space of shame, regret, sadness, those are those lower vibrational spaces where things kind of feel like they're going awry. So when we are shifting our focus into the space of love and happiness, well, love and happiness can sometimes be more difficult to conjure up, right? We can't immediately fall into the space of love sometimes, and sometimes we can. But one of the ones that I had mentioned is gratitude, and that is the space that is often the access point to then get into the spaces of understanding and feeling the emotions of happiness and love. We can always find something to be grateful for. We can say, I'm grateful for my eyebrow. I'm grateful that I have a toe. I am grateful that I have a job. It might not be the job that I want, but I'm grateful that I have a job. Grateful I have a roof over my head or a cup of coffee today. There's always something that you can find to be grateful for. And that even being in the space of gratitude will shift our energy from the space of being in resentment, in fear, in shame to
Uh,
just a little bit higher vibration, right? And it just moves us up the vibrational scale slightly, which then gives us a little bit more access. And we continue in this space into the higher vibrational energies.
so there are higher vibrational energies than gratitude.
For sure.
Yeah.
I honestly have noticed that I think love is one of the highest vibrational energies. When we are feeling love, when we are feeling in the space of just being love, existing as love, feeling love for others, it's like, wow, it's you're in this magnetic, I mean, it's the most powerful feeling that there is. And there's been many times that I have been given the vision and the guidance and the channeling energy, the divine downloads, if you want to call it, that only love is real. It is the most powerful thing.
How does this work with chakras? Is that something that you work with as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's pronounced chakra. So I know that
Chakra?
chakra, yes. So
Yeah.
commonly, many people say chakra. So I'm not, calling you out on this, but
That's okay because we'll cut that out.
okay, okay. So the way the pronunciation absolutely matters because it's a Sanskrit word, right? So in Sanskrit, every word and every pronunciation is meaningful and it all adds up. Like it's very intentional in the way that the words are structured. But yeah, absolutely. The chakras are the alignment and the energy centers of our body. And it absolutely does play a role in our manifestation ability. So when we have a chakra that is balanced or imbalanced, makes a big difference. If we are feeling that in our root chakra, Muladhara chakra, if we're feeling that there's an imbalance there, we're not feeling very safe. We're not feeling that, and safety is one of our main, things that we need to then access anything higher. If we feel
Mhm.
unsafe, we're not going to be thinking about, you know, our spiritual connection. We're not going to be thinking about anything creative or speaking up for ourselves or anything like that. The first thing to address is that level of safety, right? And this is how the chakras play into this. When we are feeling well balanced in all of our spaces, then we're able to just achieve so much more and think beyond that box of what we might be thinking previously.
Now, do you teach chakra in your practice? And
Yes,
forgive the
absolutely.
pronunciation. Yeah.
All good here. Yes, absolutely. I do support people in aligning their chakras and just understanding too as to how they can bring themselves more into alignment.
Yeah. Would you mind kind of going through from root to crown chakra for our audience?
Sure. I'll say
Yeah.
this that
What each of the chakras represent and how they can help in manifestation.
Sure. So let me just start off by saying that meditation is the one. I don't know if I want to say cure all, but I'll say that it is the one thing that will impact and bring balance to all of your chakras in your body. So if you are feeling very imbalanced in multiple spaces, which the most of us are, the best, the quickest, the most effective way to bring yourself back into balance is through meditation, right? I have been a meditator now pretty much all my life, but I'll say a very dedicated meditator since I was in my 20s and now for over 18 plus years. And it has been one of the most beneficial things that I've ever done. And that's one of the things that I always share with other people and really support my clients in that space as well, because I know that it's the one thing that you can do that fixes so many other things, that brings so many other things into alignment in this space.
Wow. Okay. Well, let's do one.
You want to do a meditation here?
Well, I just want to do a. I'd like to so people understand the different energies from the different chakras. At least so
Okay,
we
so
have
I
a
can
yeah.
definitely talk about that. So if we Okay, so there's 7 main chakras that we discuss that are commonly discussed, right? But overall throughout our body, there's over 114 different ones. So we're going to stick to the main 7 today, and we start with the root chakra. So the root is all about our space of feeling grounded, a space of feeling supported. A lot of times it is associated with the color red. So when we are consuming red foods might be like a raspberry. When we're drinking hibiscus tea and things like that, when we're feeling grounded, grounding ourselves might be in the space of going out in nature, putting our bare feet on the ground to just absorb the energy of the world, even going for a hike through the woods and spending time in nature is what can truly ground us. Other things that ground us are going to be yoga asanas, moving our body, really having the access to certain incense and smells can also be very grounding for us. Now, if we're moving up, then we have our sacral chakra, and our sacral chakra is all about the space of creation, of creativity. And if we think about this, that's the space where our reproductive organs are based as well, right? So it's just right below the navel. And in this space, we it's associated with the color orange. And orange is often, we think about the orange foods that we can bring into our lives, literally an orange. There's pumpkin and squashes and things like that that can help to support our creative energy. Now, not only are these 7 chakras in alignment, but they all kind of work with each other and they're all paired up, which is also very spectacular. And previously, I had mentioned when we're not feeling very grounded, we can't really have these thoughts of higher divinity and connection and things like that because the crown is that space. The crown is the top chakra, right? And that is associated with the root. So those two are paired up. Now the sacral chakra is associated with the next top one. The secondary association is going to be with the third eye. So when we are feeling very much in balance in our space of creativity, we can have this energy of more things coming to us through the vision of our third eye, of these ideas that might be so innovative and unthought of before coming through to us.
Hmm.
So, above the sacral chakra is going to be our solar plexus. Now, our solar plexus is where we a lot of times hold that space of confidence. And the chakra that pairs with is that of our throat. So, our throat chakra, if we think about it when we're in the space of confidence and how we speak up for ourselves. So, those two go together. And our solar plexus is associated with the color yellow. Now, if we think of yellow, it could be lemons, it can be the some squashes as well that are associated with that, as well as honey, which is a sweetness that comes to it that also can support our throat chakra as well.
Okay.
Above our solar plexus is our heart chakra. Our anahata chakra is what the heart chakra is called. Now, this is associated a lot of times with the color green. Leafy green vegetables are supporting up for our heart health as well. But our heart is also in the space of compassion. It's how we love not only the world around us and others, but how we love ourselves. Now, this is the one that doesn't necessarily have a pair, but when you look at it along the line of the 7, it's the one that is connecting the top 3 and the bottom 3. Now, the bottom 3 that we just discussed are very earthly based. It's our feeling of security, it's our feeling of confidence, our feeling of creation. Those are really earthly things. And the top 3 are more ethereal things, the things that are associated with a higher power or spiritual energy. Our voice, our third eye vision, and our connection to our crown, and to our divinity. And the heart is what connects everything together.
And meditation to clear the chakras, to allow each of the chakras to get rid of, I guess, that stuck energy or that negative energy is then, I guess, what you're saying is then what helps your vibration for manifesting the things in your life, happiness, abundance, that sort of thing. Is that right?
Yeah, so when we have our body into better balance, everything flows easier. So we also have a better belief in ourselves. So we were talking about the solar plexus, we have a more confident belief in ourselves. When we're talking about our throat chakra, right? We're able to speak up for what it is that we want.
Hmm.
So all of it is connected. It all goes hand in hand.
So what is this part of the shadow work, I guess, clearing the chakras or making sure they're in alignment and in balance?
Yes, it is a part of shadow work, but let me tell you it like this. So, when we're doing our shadow work, it's not necessarily are we linking it directly with the chakra, but they're all
Hmm.
linked, right? So, if we're talking about our feelings of worthiness, of course they're going to be linked to our feeling of the Muladhara, the root chakra, which is the feeling of safety. It's going to be linked to our solar plexus, our feeling of confidence, right? There's absolutely a link there, but it doesn't necessarily have to be broken down as such. We can just approach it from the space of our understanding our trigger.
Yeah. One thing that will be of interest to people listening to this show is when trying to get or create the correct vibration for manifestation. Um, is it? Do you believe that prayer works?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This is the thing, and I know we were talking about meditation. Meditation is this beautiful space that can bring your body into balance so that you can be the vessel of receiving the messages, so that you can be the vessel of receiving the messages, that you can get the message. But I believe very, very strongly that it's a conversation. So prayer is the aspect of the speaking of that conversation. When we're praying to God, when we're praying to a higher power, we're in the space, we're so when we're praying to a higher power, we're in the space of speaking, right? We're voicing it out. We might be asking, God, send me a message. I really need to know what to do next in my life. And we're asking that again and again and again. And we feel like, oh, that message isn't coming through. But when we think about it, have we sat in meditation? Have we given that moment of silence so that we can receive that message? It goes hand in hand so beautifully and so strongly that we want to continue that conversation with our higher power. Both are necessary.
Yeah. So it's sort of like, I guess, the old saying of a pebble into still water. You can see the ripples come from it, but if the water's moving, you don't necessarily recognize that. Well, this has been fascinating. And thank you so much for joining us. Now, how can people reach you? I know you have a TikTok page, but if you could give us a little bit of that information, I'd love for our folks to be able to follow up and get more information.
Absolutely. I do have a TikTok page. You can find me at Latha, that's Latha underscore Jay. You can also find me on Instagram, same handle, Latha, Latha underscore Jay. And there's another underscore on Instagram, as well as Facebook. And you can find me on my website, which is Latha, LathaJay.com. And I have a lot of freebies on there as well, including a free meditation and ebooks and things like that, just so people can kind of have an access into the stuff that we've been discussing and just see if it's a fit for them, see what really comes of in that exploration.
Well, thank you so much. This has been a wonderful conversation, and I hope you'll come back and be a friend of the show.
I'd absolutely love to. I've had a great time chatting with you. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll talk soon.